Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, I hope you all are well. Now there's been a lot of madness pertaining to Muslims on the TV shows. It seems that Muslims are the entertaining thing for everyone to watch, laugh at and be entertained by. This was relevant in the Muslims Like Us show that was aired a couple of weeks ago, and this week the parody sketch on BBC called Real Housewives of ISIS. Part 1 and Part 2 is probably coming out next week. Now I want to share with you, inshallah, a practical step that I want you all to do right after this video that will help for the part 2 to not be aired, because that's very offensive and disgusting, and it's actually misrepresenting Muslim women, and it's a mockery of Islam. But before I do that, I do want to share a reflection with you, and I want to give you some food for thought. Brothers and sisters, have you noticed that they never really show like what a real moderate, balanced Muslim is on these TV shows? They always go for the extremists. They always represent Islam by extremists, okay? Like ISIS and so on and so forth. And we all know that that is a type of extremism, but brothers and sisters, there's also another type of extremism. Imam Hassan al-Basri, rahimahullah, mentioned that extremism is of two types. The first type is when you're so extreme that you do more than what Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told you to do. You go overboard. For example, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was doing Hajj, and you know you have to take the stones and you have to stone the Jamarat when you go to Hajj. Some people, if they go and pick up these massive stones, they're trying to pick up these big rocks and stones to try and stone the Jamarat with. It's wrong, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam became quite upset when he saw this. He rather grabbed some small, tiny pebbles in his hand, and he said, بِأَمْثَالِ هَؤُلَاءِ. Throw things like this, these small tiny pebbles. And then straight to it, what did he say? وَإِيَّاكُمُ الْغُلُوَ فِي الدِّينِ. And be afraid and be aware and save yourself from falling into extremism within the religion. So the Prophet ﷺ saw, look, the kind of stones that the Prophet threw were tiny stones and pebbles. For you to get big boulders and rocks that are bigger is you falling into extremism. You go slightly overboard what the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told you to do. You're an extremist. That's the way we see it. We're even more strict when it comes to extremism in our religion. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke about extremism before Fox News and CNN and the BBC and all these other idiotic people. Okay? So we're against extremism, my brothers and sisters. Even by you getting rocks that are bigger than what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used. And then look what he said, فَإِنَّمَا أَهْلَكَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمُ الْغُلُوُّ فِي الدِّينِ. He said the thing that destroyed, that caused the destruction of the nations before you was when they fell into extremism in their religion. So that's one type of extremism, is when you go overboard. When you go overboard. But then Imam Hassan al-Basri said there's also another type of extremism. And that's when you do the opposite, is when you don't do enough. Overboard is you taking rocks and boulders to throw when the Prophet threw pebbles. Not doing enough is you not even going to Hajj in the first place. That's another extreme. So if you look at this image, here's the spectrum. You have the ISIS that are like the extremists, that have done too much, they've gone overboard. They've done that which the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam never did. And then you've got the liberals on the other side. And this was kind of represented by the Muslims Like Us show. And that, I'm not specifically trying to criticize people on that show, but I'm saying this represents that kind of understanding of Islam, is the liberal understanding of Islam. Is where they don't even do enough. The sister doesn't even come with hijab, doesn't even pray, for example. They fell short. So being overly exaggerated is one type of extremism, and then being negligent is another type of extremism. And both of them are as bad as each other. Both of them are not representative of Islam. And both of them, sadly, are realities of the majority of Muslims. The minority are balanced, are in the middle. And that is sad, brothers and sisters. Now, pay attention. Shaitan wants to misguide all of us. And the way Shaitan misguides us is by causing us to fall into extremism. If Shaitan wants you to fall into shirk, for example, he'll make you go extreme on a righteous person. For example, look at the Jews. Sorry, look at the Christians. Isa alayhi salam is a prophet of Allah. Shaitan caused them to go into extremism and start to worship Isa alayhi salam. The Jews, on the other hand, Shaitan caused them to go into negligence. They didn't even obey him. They didn't even follow him as a messenger. Rather, they tried to kill him. So the Christians, they fell into excessive exaggeration pertaining to Isa alayhi salam. And the Jews fell into excessive negligence. But the Muslims, as Allah said, ummatan wasata. Allah made us a balanced, moderate nation. The liberals are not moderate, brothers and sisters. Who are the true moderates? Who are the true balanced ones? When this ayah came out, ummatan wasata, that you're a balanced nation, you're a moderate nation, who was the only people on the face of this earth that could say we are the nation of Islam? As in not the nation of Islam as in America, but I mean, who could say that we are the nation of Muslims? The only people who could make that claim are the Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, companions of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when you want to know what a moderate Muslim is, it is the one that Allah was talking about when He said, we made you a moderate nation, the Sahaba. So if you follow the Sahaba, in other words, you follow the Salaf, because the Salaf are the forerunners of the Sahaba, then the person who follows the Salaf is a true moderate Muslim. The Sahaba grew beard, that's moderate. Don't tell me you're becoming an extremist because you grow a beard. No, that's liberal talk. Don't tell me you're becoming extreme because you put your trousers above your ankles. No, I'm following the Sahaba and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you see? If a sister wants to wear the khimar and the jilbab at the minimum, or she wants to wear niqab, as the wives of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, and Allah honored them in the Quran as the best of women from this nation, then you know what? That's moderate, that's not extreme. Do you see? But then to go into that ISIS kind of thing, now that's falling into extremism. And there's also, ISIS is not the only type of extremism who went into excessive exaggeration. There are many other things as well that I don't want to mention because it's going to confuse you right now. So, the real moderate Muslim, the Sahaba were in the middle. The Christians went excessively exaggerated, and the Jews were excessively negligent. And we are in the middle. Those who follow ISIS are kind of in the line of the Christians. They've excessively exaggerated. Those who are liberals are kind of like the Jews. They've become excessively negligent, pertaining to how the Quran explains this to us. Now, brothers and sisters, this is what Shaitan does to you now. Pay attention. Shaitan, when he comes to you, he sniffs your heart. He goes to your heart and he takes a sniff. And if he senses excessive love, in you, that you're a guy, just person who's passionate, you just like to, when you love something, you love it too much, then he will try to push you towards extremism. Try to make you do too much. Like the people who went to join ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all these other groups and Shabab and so on and so forth, they had a lot of love for the Ummah. They did, if we're being fair. They had love. They were concerned about the people suffering. But that excessive love, Shaitan used it and pushed them towards extremism. Because they were ignorant of their religion. They didn't know where the boundary stops, where the line stops. They never took the time to study. So Shaitan took them towards extremism. A lot of people, for example, who did the protest for the brothers and sisters who are in Aleppo, of course, we're concerned about them, right? So they have this love. The brothers and sisters have this love for the brothers and sisters who are suffering. So Shaitan senses that and he caused them to fall into extremism to the point where they start protesting. And not only protesting, they're protesting with men and women all mixed up around each other. Don't tell me that your mum is there, you're there with your mum. No, your mum is not allowed to be in the midst of the men. And you're not allowed to be in the midst of the women. The women have to be behind them, and that's the only way it works. That's excessive, that's falling into ghulula, that's a form of extremism, do you see? So if Shaitan sniffs from you love and passion, and he'll try to push you towards excessive exaggeration like the Christians. But if Shaitan senses from you laziness and negligence, Shaitan will push you towards the other type of extremism, which is liberal Islam, in the way that the Jews fell into when the Quran was talking about this. So brothers and sisters, the only way to save yourself is to pin yourself and to hold on to tightly the method of the Sahaba. The Sahaba were moderate, Allah said about them when they came down. That's why we say, I know it's you might be like, oh man, it's just a protest, but think about, did the Sahaba protest? No. Could they have protested? Could the Prophet ﷺ have protested? Was it in his ability to protest? Was there a need to protest? In the sense, well, were they being destroyed and attacked? Yeah, the same way the people in Aleppo are, same circumstance. But the Prophet ﷺ never protested. He did other things. If you don't know what it is, take the time out to study, learn. but you're doing what he didn't do, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That's called excessive exaggeration. Some people did nothing, just stayed on their couches and just munched food and whatever. Anyway, just Aleppo, everyone else is suffering. That's the other form. Do you see? Now, if you look at this real housewife of ISIS, they represent this type of extremism, excessive love, and Muslims like us is the other type. Sahaba is in the middle. Brothers and sisters, the reason I'm telling you this is because wallah, it's very important that we learn what is the balanced Islam. Okay, Sahaba, but we need a bit more practical examples. What is the balanced Islam? That's why, brothers and sisters, this event that we're doing on Sunday has come at the right time. It's called Muslims Like Us Live Reaction and Response. It's a free event. And I want all of you to come. It's in West London. It's free. There are not many seats left. It's almost gone. And the event is only 2 hours long. It's going to start at 2:30, sharp inshallah ta'ala. And it's going to be finished by Salatul Maghrib. So you can go home. But wallahi, the 2 lectures that we have planned for you are so imperative and essential for our time. Linked to the Muslims Like Us show. And it's not really about the shows, but it's topics and discussions that come because of the show. And of course, there's reality of ISIS as well. We as Muslims need to learn, when we say Muslims like us, Muslims like who? Muslims like the kuffar? Muslims like these extremists or liberals? Or Muslims like the Sahaba? If so, who are the Sahaba like? Wallahi, we really need to learn this. So I'm really urging you, my beloved brothers and sisters, please take the time out. Especially bring your non-practicing friends. Brothers, bring your non-practicing brothers, sisters, bring your non-practicing sisters and come to the event. It's free. You can't ask for anything else. We don't like to charge for our events because we're not trying to make money from you guys. We just want you guys to learn, inshallah ta'ala. So hopefully I see you there Sunday. Go to the link below and just register, just get your ticket. It's free. But you have to get your ticket, inshallah ta'ala. Just go to the link below and get it, inshallah ta'ala. Now, with that said, alhamdulillah, extremism of 2 types, blah, 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 blah. You kind of get a good understanding. What can we do to make sure that the next show is not aired? This is just a short-term solution. It's not a long-term solution. If you want a long-term solution, please go to the link below. There is a video I have called The Solution to Why the Ummah is Suffering. And that will basically be the long-term solution for how to get over our suffering and humiliation, inshallah. But the short-term solution is you can call the BBC. Look at these 2 numbers that are on the screen. I'll also put them in the section below. Call them up and complain like mad and tell everyone to complain and say, please do not air this. If I don't say please, tell them, do not air this. This is offensive, find it very offensive. Get as many people as you can to call, and also go to the link that is also in the section below where you can actually file a formal complaint. So I really hope, inshallah, you guys will do that. I hope you take heed, I hope you benefit, share the video. I hope to see you at the event on Sunday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.